Welcome to the TechnoGals Podcast, a podcast where two gals talk about technology and anything else that is top of mind. Let's get started.
You brought back in the guns.
Yeah.
The finger guns.
Yeah, and I want to talk about it too. Before we get started on the topics for today and what we're going to talk about, do you watch Star Trek?
No.
Oh, that's weird. You should. But every captain, when they're getting ready to make the ship go, they have this saying. And I said but Captain Picard, he says engage or make it so. Janeway, I think, says execute. So where we say let's get started? I'm going to think of my own catchphrase next time. And it includes finger guns because I just feel like that's what we should do, at least when I do the intro. So what do you think about that?
I love it. I love that you all have your own little thing.
You're so supportive. Okay. So today's topics are, we want to talk a little bit about the concepts of having a mentor versus a sponsor, and a new concept that I learned about, which is a personal board of directors. So we want to spend a little bit of time there. And then our second tech topic is going to be around GenAI. It's super buzzwordy right now. And Alicia and I just want to talk a little bit about how we were seeing it in kind of our roles at AWS, but then also in our personal lives, because I think it's popping up a little bit everywhere. So with that, all right. So I recently went to a conference, NRF, National Retail Federation, in New York. And there was this really interesting women in retail tech talk. And they talked about the concept of having a mentor, having a sponsor, and then this idea of personal board of directors. And I've obviously heard of a mentor before, right? It's someone that is working with coaching and career growth, and you're turning to them for advice. But I hadn't heard of the term sponsor. And so before I talk a little bit about that, have you heard of having a work sponsor before?
No, but I really want one now.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. I want
I've never
lots
heard
of
of
them.
it though. Yeah, so before you dive in here, can we just talk about the one thing that's changed about our friendship since we've started doing this podcast? Is that Tracy will call me or text me about something, and then she'll be like, oh, I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm saving it for the podcast. And then I have to wait until we start recording to actually get all of the information. So, and part of this is because we try to have a really authentic podcast. So we don't pre-script anything. We know in general what we're going to, the themes are, but we don't have any idea where it's going to go and what's going to be the actual things that pop out of our mouth. So I'm going to be learning about this sponsorship and a personal board of directors right at the same time. So I'm excited. I'm ready to learn.
Oh, well, you've come to the right spot then. So you're right. We do that a lot, actually. No, we can't talk about it. Save it for the podcast.
I want your real reaction.
Right. So this idea of a sponsor is to have someone in your work environment that is advocating for you when you are not in the room. And I was
I love that idea.
Yeah. And so they go on about, how you can find a sponsor and the difference between having a sponsor and a mentor. And then they kind of leave you with this question of who is your sponsor? And so we can dive into that further in a little bit. And then the other question is, who are you sponsoring?
Yeah.
And how are you empowering kind of that next generation of leaders or technologists? And it was just it was a very light bulb moment for me. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I think about it. But from a sponsorship perspective, do you feel like you have a sponsor currently? And then the flip side of, do you feel like you are a sponsor for someone right now?
That's a great question. I'm not for sure I can say that I have an official sponsor at the moment that I think, I mean, you would hope everyone's manager is sponsoring you and advocating for like when opportunities are popping up. So I hope that I do, but I just don't know well enough to, we were all experiencing kind of new leaders at AWS with the reorganization. So I don't think I can say that I officially do at this moment, but I do think, I mean, I guess this is not meant to be narcissistic sounding, but I am a huge advocate for everyone on my team. So I think that I'm each one of their independent sponsors. You know, I know a lot of leaders or managers will sometimes not want to see their talent go to a different team, but I've always been like, it's time for you to grow. Like, yes, it's time for you to move into the next space. And of course, I'm gutted to lose them on my team, but like that's the right thing to do. So I feel like I'm a sponsor for everyone on my team, but I don't have like officially someone outside of my team that I feel like I'm constantly advocating for. So I probably maybe should expand myself a little bit in that space.
Yeah, I would tend to agree about the direct reports on my team looking for opportunities where they can leverage their comparative advantage, because it's different for every individual.
Right.
We're unique human beings. Some people are better at one thing versus the other. But I also was trying to think, is there anyone else outside of my direct reports that I sponsor? And I did think of a few people, and I'm like, well, how do I grow that? And then I started to analyze what were the characteristics that made me lean towards that sponsorship. And then even one step further, do they know that I'm sponsoring them?
The last part is probably really key, because that's also such an empowerment, like a booster. I don't think we give enough compliments to people, but like to know that someone's advocating for you and you're not in the room and having their back, that's kind of a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. And so I was doing a little bit of research last night around just the idea of sponsorship and how can you even go about and get one. And you already kind of touched on it. One is your manager. Making sure you're having kind of those clear, open lines of communication about where you want to take your career and how they can help position you into some of those, forward-looking opportunities. The other is potentially your mentor can turn into a sponsor, depending on the area in which they work and how you guys interact with each other. And then the other thing was your skip level. And so I was thinking about that. I'm like, I need to be more intentional about having skip level interactions and one-on-ones and building that relationship. So then they can also think of, would this be a good opportunity for Tracy to engage in? So I need to be more intentional about it, but I'm curious about what your thoughts are there.
No, that makes sense. I always just feel like the further up you go, as far as like people you're engaging with, the harder it is to find time on calendars. And I feel sometimes, maybe this is, I don't know what the right phrase is. It's not guilty, but I'm like, everyone's so busy. I'm like, I don't want to necessarily take up more time. And so I feel like I tend to avoid that because I'm just really calendar conscious and like conscious. So I think I haven't done a good job in that space myself either, admittedly.
Yeah. Well, this is just like a parting thought, not that we're done with this episode, but to our listeners is I would encourage you to think about being intentional with getting a mentor, but then also being intentional about getting a sponsor and sponsoring someone else. That can look different for everyone and in any part of their career, whether you're a people leader and have direct reports or not. I think it's still a really important concept, especially for women in technology, when it's harder to find other females that have gone through some of those same career pathways and I don't know, maybe some just difficult situations of navigating a male-dominated industry. So how are we thinking about our younger generation of female leaders and female technologists and helping them succeed?
For sure. I definitely am a huge advocate of mentoring and being a mentee. I've had several mentors in my career, and anytime someone's like, hey, do you have a mentor? I'm like, yes, but they're like, would you like another mentor? And I'm like, yes, because I'll take all of the support and feedback I will never stop thinking that I've grown the max I can grow. And so anytime I can add a better perspective to my tool belt, or something that challenges my point of view or allows me to be self-critical of how I handled something to improve myself, like that to me is a huge win. Yeah. I try to pick mentors though that are outside of my normal space, like still in tech, but one of my mentors now is on the sales side. And partially because you and I are we get to be not motivated by our, I don't want to say not motivated, that's not really what I mean. Part of our compensation is not related to anything variable or hitting an attainment. So we get to offer what is the right solution for the right customer, but at the sense that also can affect your salesperson's ability to earn their paycheck. And so this time I picked a mentor that was in the sales space just because I wanted to be more empathetic to that point of view and understand how to kind of manage when we're advocating for just making the right decision, but knowing how that impacts their paycheck and learning more about that and how can I position what we're doing to be more supportive in that space as well. So I wanted to have that additional kind of perspective to challenge how I also led my team to lead with solutions.
Yeah, I also have a mentor outside of our normal kind of CSM organization. And actually is making me think I need to do a follow-up because we haven't had a follow-up in a while. But I really enjoy working on what we call Pan-Amazon opportunities, which are large opportunities where it's mutually beneficial for both AWS, Amazon, and the customer. So these joint kind of like business deals. And my mentor is in that space. And so that's been really cool to just have have a mentor for the coaching and career development if I wanted to move into something like that in the future. But also, to your point, it's just a totally different perspective. And sometimes we can get tunnel vision of this is the way it has to be. And someone coming in from the outside, having, maybe able to see the larger picture gives us, I think, a unique advantage when you do have that type of mentor.
Yeah, for sure. I think it really offers a helpful perspective, or challenges my own perspective.
Yeah.
But what's this personal board of directors? I don't know anything about that one either.
Hold on. I have to take a beer drink.
Oh, okay. I'll join you.
It's a nah beer. Damp January.
Yeah. Dry damp January. This one's...
And this is for the Super Bowl champs. Hopefully we can do it again. Yeah, I know.
Oh, good. Mine is a non-alcoholic seltzer from a company I think maybe you pronounce Hayo, but I'm not entirely sure.
Hayo.
Yeah, that's
Mine's a Sierra Nevada Trail Pass. It's pretty tasty. It tastes like a wheat beer.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, beer drink concluded. Personal board of directors. This is a concept of if you view yourself as the CEO of your business, of your own career development and progression, and even kind of in your own personal life where you want to go, these are your board of directors to help you get there and to help advise. So some will be supporters, some will be challengers, some will be connectors to help you network with other individuals. Some will be your advocates, so maybe this is even like a sponsor. But I had also never heard of this, and so then, they asked the question to the audience, who's on your personal board of directors? So Alicia, who is on your personal board of directors right now? And what roles do they play?
I think mine would come in different forms though. My significant other is my biggest supporter and cheerleader, and can just so that's gotta be one of them, because the poor man has to deal with so much.
Brad, you the true MVP.
Yeah, for sure. There's just a lot that, especially because you and I are pretty high achievers, pretty strong drivers, and just want to get stuff done. It always seems like I have a pretty high executive, and poor guy just is he's like, oh man, he's like, aren't you done yet? I'm like, no, there's still more to do. And then I'll just be completely stressed out at one moment in time, and then he's there to help me out and pick me back up. So he definitely has to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, you're not the only one that said that. So when I think about it, that's also someone that's on my personal board of directors. But The women on the panel, 2 of them said their husband.
Yeah.
I think it's like a key component, your significant other. I mean, if they're not, you might want to think about why and should they be.
For sure.
I don't know, just calling it out.
I don't think I spend the most amount of time with him outside of work hours, right? I mean, us as a family with the kiddos and whatnot. So it's like, that's where I spend the mass majority of my time outside of in front of this laptop.
Yeah. Who else?
So I feel like I was probably one of my first really strong female tech relationships, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't have permission to do so, but she was one of the first people I kind of interacted with when I entered into tech that just got shit done. Like, didn't matter what it was. If it was cleaning old support tickets, if it was whatever it is, and she was, a higher ranking person, but she's like, this is messy, it needs cleaned up, would just dive in and fix it and get it done. So it was really easy just to kind of be enamored by the path she created, because I was like, this is impressive. Like, doesn't care, not like swayed, doesn't matter that my title's this, needs done.
Yeah.
Needs a better improvement, I'm going to tackle it. So I did love that. And she's still someone that, even as I've swapped between positions, like I would talk to her. She's a huge female advocate for especially female in tech as well. She will disclose her salary and she'll be like, no, ask for more. You're worth more. And I just love that she is one of those people that just encourages you to negotiate, especially because we have the data behind this. Women don't necessarily negotiate when they get an offer. And she's one of those people that reminds me that, no, you need to do for more. And she'll even tell you, she's like, this is my salary. And she's like, I won't tell this to anyone, but I'll definitely tell it to any female so they know what other people are getting paid and that they're worth more too. So I do love that. Awesome. And we don't talk super frequently, but when I do call her, she's like, yep, available in 15 minutes. What you need.
That is awesome.
She's definitely been one of I still look up to her career and what she's done and how she's kind of progressed and just being a really awesome kind of bulldog in this space.
Yeah. I think, so one of mine are, I think you, but you talked a little bit about significant other. One kind of thing that I leverage Adam for is he's also in the tech space and he's been a leader for the majority of his career. And so he's been really helpful on checking me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, here's what I got going on. Help me think about it differently. And he just has that really unique perspective, and he knows me. So he knows my intention, but he also knows some of my weak points or my blind spots, and he can help call that out. And that's what I really appreciate. But then I was just trying to think, so outside of the husband, I think I mentioned you were on it. You're definitely, I feel like, a huge supporter, and I can always come to you and ask for advice. But then I was trying to think if there was...
Thank you, by the way. Flattered.
You're welcome. It's not a big deal that I'm not on yours, but we'll talk about that off camera.
This is like Snapchat, like back in the day, like they had the emoji next to whoever was your top sender. And then if it wasn't matching, you'd be like, oh, who are you sending stuff to?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I'm feeling right now. But one other person that, and I won't say their name, but I always so appreciated their advice, and we no longer work together in the same company. And before we started filming and, thinking through these topics, I was like, I really need to reach out and set up just some sort of quarterly cadence to keep that connection. They're kind of split between a mentor, a sponsor, an advocate, kind of a challenger, all of the things. And I think it's really important that I maintain that relationship, because why wouldn't you want to?
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think we talked about this last episode, and I know all of our episodes are kind of like standalone, so if you haven't watched it, please do. It's got some good nuggets in there. But if you did, we talked about how one of my weaknesses is networking, because I tend to be more of an introvert. And I just finished this 6-week program at the Wharton University, which was called Executive Presence and Influence. And one of the week's modules was all about your network. And I do think it's still I need to be just consistently better at it. And it's more the frequency of touch points. Yes, you're in my network, but having even a quarterly touch base with like 4 to 10 people isn't really that much time. And it's very useful to kind of share where you are, what you're working on, how do you kind of grow and get more connectors from that point of view. But I do think I'm really bad at it.
Yeah.
Not just because I don't prioritize it.
Right. Like you think about it now, like when we're having an intentional conversation about where are the areas with mentorship, sponsorship, or personal board of directors that we're really good at, and then where are the areas where we're kind of failing or have some room for opportunity. But I think going away from this conversation, it's a really good reset to say, my action item by the end of this week, I'm going to commit to it right now, is I'm going to reach out to the person that I used to work with that I consider kind of on that personal board of directors. And I'm going to set up a cadence, and I'm going to set up a touch point for my mentor that's here in AWS. That's what I'm going to commit to.
That's awesome.
What are you going to commit to?
Oh, God. Not being put on the spot. This is why you're not in my personal board of directors.
I guess because I'm your challenger.
I'm just kidding. I think I have more people on my personal board, but it's just that it's like, I'll just give like the top few highlights. Because I was even thinking as you've asked this question, I'm like, oh, I do reach out to that person quite a bit. Like when I just like need a sounding board. And so I think there's more. I just haven't conceptualized it in the way you've explained it. What will I commit to? I was thinking about this as you were chatting, and it's like, if you just reached out to one person on LinkedIn a week, it's no more than probably an hour time commitment. 15 minutes to send the thing, a few minutes to schedule something, 30 minutes to chat, 15 minutes to maybe send like not a recap, like a summary, but just like a thank you and appreciativeness of it. And it's not, an hour is like should be a very easy to find amount of time. And I just need to prioritize it the same way I'm giving myself the permission to make for sure I get to the gym.
Yeah.
It's got to be in that same level of just growing in what you're trying to do. So.
Right. It's all part of personal development. And if you think about your career growth and future roles and things that you want to do, this is going to help you get there.
Yeah. So if you just did one person a week, that's 4 people. Let's do 52 people over the year, and let's give yourself a couple of like off weeks. That's like 40 to 45 additional people you're connecting with and engaging with. It's pretty impactful, actually. That could be huge.
Right. That sounds scary, though. I'm gonna have
one every other week. Now you're at 26.
Okay, that sounds more achievable for my own sanity. Okay. Any other last comments, words of wisdom on mentor, sponsor, personal board of directors?
Thanks for making me think of it. I love the way that you framed it, and I definitely want to kind of plot this out a little bit more in my brain on who are those resources that frequently I go to or rely upon for those types of roles or spaces. I like it.
Yeah. And I'm also going to be more intentional about when I'm working with my team, asking them those same questions. Who are you mentoring? Who's your mentor? Who are you sponsoring?
I love it. I especially love the 360.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, next topic. GenAI.
Okay.
GenAI.
Yeah, that's what it was like. Last year I was like, oh my God, this is so much. It's nonstop.
A lot.
It was nonstop.
And I think it still is. So what we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about is generative artificial intelligence. GenAI is so popular, and sometimes it can feel a little buzzwordy. And so what we wanted to do is just to talk a little bit about how we are seeing it in our just day-to-day jobs at AWS, but then how we're also seeing it pop up in our personal lives. So Alicia, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, do you want to give it a go on just high-level explanation of what it is?
This should be one of those times where I'm like, sure, hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my nah beer.
Hold my nah beer.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I think this is important to preface, and we mentioned this a few episodes ago as well, I think last one, that we are generalist. We know a little bit about a lot of things in tech, but you and I are not 500, 600 level deep on anything. Well, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we're in the same boat about where we are on anything AI ML. So this is meant to be like, if you were going to have a conversation with your grandma, or maybe your mom or dad, or maybe your brother or sister, or just a friend, whoever may be, like, how would you describe these terms, and how would you kind of break them down in a way that makes sense? That's how I'm approaching this conversation. So we have artificial intelligence, which is like the biggest piece of the umbrella, the furthest part of the box, the outside of the box. And anything artificial intelligence is like, you have a friend, let's say that they're named Computer, and your computer happens to remember your favorite movie, your favorite food, something like that, and it's acting like a human. That's artificial intelligence. Your friend, the computer, is doing something that's human-like. So that's the biggest bucket that we have. Mm-hmm. We go a layer deeper than that, and that's usually machine learning. And machine learning is like if you had a friend, and that friend was also named Computer, maybe the same one, and you showed that computer or that friend several different pictures of a cat, several different pictures of a dog, and eventually you trained it to where it knows enough about what the whiskers look like, the ears are different on a cat versus a dog, and it can now identify and predict what that image is going to be based upon what you show it. And so that's machine learning. You're training it to know what it's ingesting and like what's going to come out on the other side of it. And most people don't know this, but we actually interact with machine learning probably more than we know, because anytime you have one of those reCAPTCHAs, when you're trying to verify that you're not a robot. You're technically like labeling like data. You're saying that this is a bicycle, this is a stoplight, this is a wheel, this is a motorcycle. And you are labeling content usually.
I did not even put that together. I mean,
yeah. So the reason why you have to do genius. Yeah. So you have to do a few of them. And then on top of that, multiple people get the same pictures. And over time, they'll know, because some people could be wrong. Everyone has that moment of pressure when you're about to click on like the stoplight because a tiny little edge of it's in the picture and you're not for sure if that counts or not. So multiple people obviously get the same picture. And over time, it learns within a certain amount of accuracy if it is a bicycle wheel or not. The other really good example I have for machine learning is you're in a car accident and you take a picture of your vehicle, you can upload it and you can get a general estimate back on your total damages, because it can see, hey, this bumper's damaged, and it's going to know to replace it or something of that nature. So it's training something to recognize pictures or whatever it is you want to train it on. It's like machine learning, one layer deeper. The next layer deeper would be, well, technically there's another one. The next one we're going to talk about is generative AI. So this is like your same friend that's maybe named Computer, right? We've been talking about this friend for a minute now. And you've given it all of this information, all of these sets of rules and guidelines that come from a foundational model. That's like the next layer below. And so there's all different types of foundational models. But you have put all of these rules and these guidelines into this foundational model, and your computer friend now is so smart, it can take that information and create or generate something from that. So if I've given it a bunch of pictures of cats and dogs, that would be one model. It's an image capturing or image generative foundational model. Then it's going to spit out a new version of a cat or a dog mixed together based upon whatever it is that you ask it. Mm-hmm. So in that situation. So generative is just taking all of these rules and parameters and spitting out a new something, whatever that something may be.
And that could be an image or text or audio.
Yes.
It could be a myriad of things.
So what do you think? Does that kind of sum up
that was
most
really
of it?
Good.
Or what else would you add?
I don't know if I can top that, but just to kind of keep hitting it home on the Gen AI space is we in AWS, it's very front of mind for our customers, because their customers are expecting this new type of experience with how they interact with products. So a lot of times how we see it, or at least how I see it on my side, is the board of directors are getting pressured to say, what is your strategy for generative AI? And how are you going to incorporate that into your business to drive net new revenue or cut cost or optimize labor and all of these things? I don't know if you see something similar.
For sure. Yeah. 100%. It's a very similar thing. There's a top-down pressure. It's like, what are you going to do? This is so cool. We know it's cool. We know it's going to be really business impact and altering. How are you adopting it?
Yeah. So when I was at that conference, one of the things that they were talking about is they were talking about these different use cases, and MasterCard was presenting. And they built a shopping assistant that's tied to your MasterCard that says, you can type in and say, hey, I'm going to go to the beach in Hawaii with my family. We're going to be there for 5 days. Help me build a vacation itinerary. Oh, also, we're going to have this really romantic dinner on the beach. So I need something to wear for that dinner date. And then it pumps out it'll pump out your vacation itinerary. It'll link you to where you can purchase plane tickets and hotels. And oh, it found that perfect outfit for you. And maybe it points to Amazon.com and you're going to get your shoes and your dress and your jewelry and all of these things. And so there's all of these use cases around customer experience that we're starting to see. Another example that I heard about at the conference was, I forget what company this guy was with, but he was talking about just internally, he uses them for performance reviews. So he still goes and gathers 360 feedback from peers, colleagues, for his employees. So it doesn't take away the GenAI component of it, doesn't take away that human interaction with your direct report, but it does help in summarizing all of the feedback that he received into a meaningful summary, high-level themes around areas for growth and opportunity, and then their strengths. And I'm like, that's really interesting too. Yeah. So there's all of these kind of little use cases that keep popping up, but then it's also in our day-to-day lives too. I'll give maybe just one kind of cool example is, when Alicia and I were starting this podcast, we're like, well, we need a logo. We need something. I have a ChatGPT account, the paid version of it. And with that, you get DALL-E, DALL-E. And that's the image side. And so I said, hey, we are two gals. We're technology nerds. We're awkward and weird, but also super cool. Help us create a logo that would represent what this podcast might be. And so our logo, it got us like 75% of the way there, I would say. I don't know if you would agree or disagree. And then we took it that last 25%. So that's just one of the most like recent use cases, but I use a lot of different tools. What about you?
Well, I don't know if people notice this, but our logo, but like the female image, our symbol is in it. And is also part of the mic, which is what was generated. And I was like, that was brilliant. And in a million years, I would have probably never done that. Now, some other really creative and talented person may have done that. I would have never, because that's not my strength. So I was like, this is so cool. And then we did the modifications there afterwards to it. But like the whole female symbol being part of the mic was definitely what came out of the GenAI image creator, which was freaking awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And I think people have this weird feeling of it's going to take our jobs. I mean,
no,
maybe, but
like maybe.
I'm not trying to be like doomsday, but in a different way. It's to me, it's all supplemental, and our jobs, our roles will change because of this. There will be new jobs created because of this. I don't think it's ever just going to be.
We've always thought that way, though. We thought that way when like robots started working on cars.
Right.
And it was like, oh, it's going to do this job. But it's like, no, we just repurpose that talent to be doing something that's not manual and repetitive.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to this guy on the plane, and he was talking about, you're sitting next to the person and you're like, oh, are they going to be chatty or not? this person was very chatty. And what do you do? Oh, I work in tech, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, have you heard about GenAI? Yeah.
It's like a bad punchline or something.
I know. And he was like, well, I'm a musician, and have you seen the tools that they're coming out with this? I just think it's just ridiculous that, people can win awards for songs that were, auto generated. And we started like going down this like big discussion. And I just always go back to, it's all supplemental. Do you think that person took it just as is and then it was totally perfect? Yeah. I would highly doubt that they did. They're modifying based on their own requirements and their own creativity to make it their own. But it just kind of gives you a starting point. At least that's how I feel about it. But it's just really funny. There was just a very extreme, immediate negative sentiment around it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel very differently about it. Like last year when it was just like all over the news and I couldn't quite keep up with it because I was too busy. But now I feel like, I don't think that like, here I'm saying too many likes. I'm not sure people understand the true impact of this. And I truly think it's one of those like generational changing technologies, which is a very big statement in and of itself. But if we think about OpenAI and ChatGPT-4, they're estimated to have spent $100 million to $200 million. And this is information available from the internet. $100 million to $200 million to get this launched and going. It involved over 400 people, and we don't even know how many were involved in like the fine tuning of that. It's a normal company would not be able to, I want to say a normal company, I mean like anyone starting up, anyone in the like mid-range kind of area, not going to be able to create this. And so to me, what it did was democratize AI. Yeah. It made it available for these mid-range or smaller companies to start to take advantage of the power of this. So I think it's huge. It's like estimated to be, if you wrote it in code, 80 like trillion lines of code and 700 gigabytes in like total size. Like it's massive. Like your normal 4K like TV show is maybe 40 gigabytes. So it's just huge. It's a huge investment, and I think it's a really powerful tool that's made available to others now to improve their any engagement and to try to find a way to monetize it as well.
Yeah. Well, and you and I talked a little bit about this, but something that I've been trying to do is start to lean into these tools to figure out how I can make my life easier. So, I can't say this word. Perplexity. Whoa. Perplexity.ai.
Are you sure it's an NA beer, Tracy?
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't say that word. It's supposed to be Google's new biggest competitor as a search engine. And so I've been using that a lot, and it's actually been really nice. And I have to be intentional because, you just go to Google and that's just part of your ingrained normal way. But I start leaving it open as a tab on my browser for both work and personal. And it's actually been super helpful. Another tool I use is Notion.ai. That's like a note-taking tool where it can predict on some of your notes and help you structure them better after you've already created them. Talked a little bit about ChatGPT. I'm trying to think. There was one other one that we were thinking of. But yeah, it's everywhere, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. The last thing was the metaverse. Oh, the metaverse.
Yeah.
It's like this big, like, scary thing. We're all just going to live in a virtual reality. And I think that's still there, but, the next thing is GenAI. But even before that, it was, Bitcoin. It's always going to be something. Those things aren't going away, but I think this is just the noisiest thing right now, but probably has the most potential out of all of those things.
For sure. But I think the one thing that we haven't really talked about is the fact that GenAI has brought back to the forefront the importance of data. Because even though there's foundational models now, it's better. Data is your differentiating factor. And if you have your own personal data from your company that you're using to engage with customers more, you can customize that foundational model. But if you have bad data, you can't do anything. So now all the conversations are, how do we have clean data, good data? How do we collect it, store it, manage it, transform it if we need to, and then also use it as a utility? And that should be probably what we talk about next, our data strategies and
Yeah,
what
that's a great
what are we
point.
seeing as trends with data that's going on now. It's a whole nother topic, but Gen AI is not really, I'm not going to say it's not possible, but the true power is from that differentiated data.
Yeah, great
Or at
call
least
out.
I should say, these are in my humble opinions.
No, I mean, we have, I don't know how many teams at AWS that are just designed to help customers with their data strategy. And when any customer is thinking about what do they want to do with Gen AI and how can they think about maybe like a proof of concept, always the first question is, well, what's your data strategy? What does that look like?
What's
Because
your
that's
end-to-end
gonna,
data strategy? How,
yeah,
and what it is it even really usable?
yeah.
So,
Well, that was a lot there. Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I mean, this is like a topic we could go on for days, but I'm sure everyone's like, okay, thanks for keeping it brief.
Yeah. Go and drink your nah beer. Okay, well, that's all we had today. So one thing that we just wanted to kind of remind the community of, we so appreciate your support. We've gotten so many messages, a lot of comments, a lot of people reaching out and showing some love. Yes, thank you so much. One way you can support us is to follow our Spotify podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and honestly, just keep reaching out. We had someone today reach out and said, hey, would you be interested in maybe a potential topic? We're like, yes.
Yes.
So please reach out. We appreciate all of it. And this is a lot of fun. So we hope we can continue to do it. So
For sure.
that's it.
All right. Per the usual, you got to cue that outro music.